Welcome everyone to another episode of UNDERWRAPS. And today I've got a very, very special guest. Today's guest needs no introduction. There's no way you could miss this guy if you cross paths with him on the road. He is once again a leader in what he does and one of the best that I've seen in a while. I'm not a big bodybuilding guy, but I know a good physique when I see one. Ladies and gentlemen, Sibusiso Kotelo.
Thank you so much, bro. I appreciate it.
Short. Sibusiso, can you tell us a bit about yourself, man?
Jeez, that's always a difficult question. I'm born and raised in Durban. Came to Joburg 5 years ago, 2015. Been competing professionally only for 2 years, but been training for about 7 years. And we come from a small township called Lamontville. I went to a good high school, George Campbell in Durban Model C School. Went to UCT, and then came to Joburg, bro, try to get this bodybuilding thing going.
Yeah. And tell me, man, what started that? I mean, I know I want to get big and buff, but before, I never thought that I could really make it a thing.
Okay.
What for you said to you that, hey, maybe I could actually make this something that can work for me?
So the story goes that I bumped into, or rather, I stumbled into bodybuilding, right?
Okay.
I was a rugby boy, say from grade 8, grade 9, and then in grade 10, my academics took a dip, so my mom kind of made me discontinue playing rugby. Academics went well again in grade 11, so I went back, and then I played grade 11 in matric. And then first year, actually, I did a gap year, but I was playing for UKZN at the time. And then I went to UCT, I played rugby. So I sustained a rugby injury, right? And it so happened that it happened concurrently when my academics were taking a dip at UCT, because I was actually studying engineering, and most of the rugby guys I was playing with were in humanities, you know what I mean? So I was keeping up with the humanities guys, studying engineering, which was not a smart idea. So subsequently I got kicked out, right? So dropped out, and when I went back to Durban, I was training, so I was working for Acadro at the time, and I was training at Virgin Active Gateway. And then I met a guy called Andrew Hudson, who's also an IFBB Pro, and he's like, dude, you got great genetics, you should try bodybuilding. I had no idea what this thing was, you know? So he drops Arnold Schwarzenegger's name, and I'm like, dude, I know that guy from movies. I don't know what he did prior to the movies, you know? So anyway, I Googled this thing, and I'm like, bro, are you joking? You want me to stand on stage and pose and freaking, I call it a speedo. Until I knew that it's called a posing trunk, right?
Okay.
So I'm like, nah, bro, there's no way I'm doing this. So anyway, a few weeks later, I bumped into another mate of mine I went to high school with. He was a year ahead of me in high school, and he already been doing bodybuilding, right? So he's like, yeah, dude, you should come train with me and my coach. So I'm like, okay. So anyway, I get there, and cut a long story short, I started training with this guy and his coach, who most people actually know in the industry as my father. So he calls himself my godfather.
Okay.
Stone Tele. So I started training with him in October 2013, with the promise that in April 2014, I'm going to do my first show. So that's when it started, bro. And I've never looked back ever since. You know, it hasn't been easy. It's been a long road, bro. So I literally stumbled into bodybuilding because I had no idea what bodybuilding was. I'd be lying to you if I said I was those kids that grew up and I knew who Ronnie Coleman was. I had posters of him on my wall. I'd genuinely be lying. All I knew was academics, finishing, top 3 in my grade, and when I do have time, playing some rugby. And literally my life was just trying to balance between the two. That's all.
Yeah.
So in terms of sporting, that's all I knew. Look, I ran track in primary, but that's how I got into bodybuilding.
Okay, and tell me some things. With the rugby and the bodybuilding side of things, is there much of a difference? Were you Were you already a big guy?
There's a big difference.
Yeah.
Bro. There's a big difference. The training itself is not the same. Prior to starting bodybuilding, I wouldn't say I was a big guy, but according to, I'm not going to say statistics, but yeah, according to statistics, I was relatively big. Because when I got on stage as a junior, at the time, I think they said I was the third biggest junior ever in South Africa. That was the narrative. Ironically, the second biggest was actually Andrew Hudson. He was the biggest junior to get on stage, because normally as a junior, that's why they have over 75 kgs and under 75. So normally, because juniors under 21, so you fluctuate around that weight, you know what I mean? Yeah. I got on stage on my first show, was 102 kgs. So in essence, I got on stage being like kg wise, I wouldn't say big wise, but on scale, I was bigger than the average adult that competes as, because over 100 kgs is called super heavyweight. So I was a super heavyweight as a junior. Yeah.
Do you think it helps to have a good physique, or can anyone be a bodybuilder?
Anyone can be a bodybuilder, bro. I'll tell you that much. Anyone can be a bodybuilder. If anything, I always tell people, or how I advocate bodybuilding, is that in the true essence of the word, everyone is a bodybuilder. So anyone who has a gym membership is a bodybuilder. You're building your body because you're trying to tone. Some people are trying to lose fat. Some people are trying to bulk. Whatever the case may be. But obviously the question you're asking is, can someone be a bodybuilder as in, professionally, or pursue a career in bodybuilding? I think yes. It gets a bit tricky when, you get into the pro ranks, and now the judgment is stricter. And also it's more, I wouldn't say bodybuilding is genetic bias, but to a large degree genetics can play a role. But at the same time, genetics don't wake you up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, true.
So the reason I say that is because when you hear some narratives of people, and I'm going to put myself in there, when they speak of the way my physique is structured, they're like, I'm a hybrid of so-and-so's genetics with so-and-so's genetics.
I've heard that, yeah.
So when the narrative is that, it then shows you that certain genetics are more appreciated because bodybuilding is in essence about aesthetics. So anyone can do bodybuilding, but sometimes when it boils down to what the human eye can see or appreciate, maybe I'd say genetics can be a deciding factor as to whose physique looks good and whose physique doesn't look good. You know what I mean?
Okay. Okay. And tell me something, bro. Like, there's a lot of these competitions, right?
Yeah.
And more are coming up. And what's the most prestigious? Like, what are the categories? Like you said, 100 plus is super heavyweight.
Yeah.
What are the categories? Because I've seen ripped, skinny bodybuilders, yeah. And then you've got guys like you who are huge. So what are the categories, and what, like, if I wanted to compete at a later stage, where do I start? What category do I start in, and all of that?
So look, I mean, back in the day in bodybuilding, before the split that happened in IFBB, so everyone started novice, right? So, and then from there you then progress into, obviously, well, depending on your age, rather, when you started. So most people, the progression will be juniors. They go from juniors, they do novice, and then from novice, then depending on your weight scale. So normally, depending on how big the show is, they either go up in 5 kg increments or 10 kg increments. So for example, they have an under 60, and then there's an under 70, and then under 80, under 90, over 90, over 100.
And each one of those are their own categories?
Own categories, yeah.
Okay.
And then, with my federation, we also have exactly the same concept. There's under, I think, 65, 75, 85, 95, and then over 102. And I think the only reason it's 102 is because obviously when you travel overseas, they do pounds, not kgs, right?
Yeah.
So they do 102.5 kgs. So that would be the starting point for someone novice, and then depending on your weight, then you go according to your weight, right? That's per division, and that's a division. And then the most important question you ask is that what is the highest escalate? The highest achievements as a bodybuilder on earth, and I don't care who says what, because obviously a lot of people will be butthurt because of federation policies. But I don't care who says what. The truth of the matter is the highest achievements any bodybuilder could ever achieve walking on this planet is Mr. Olympia. Done deal. Right? The reason I say that is because, again, as I said, some people in their federation, they'll say respectfully, it's their federation's championship that's the best. The only way I normally gauge it, and someone actually laughed at this, is that when Mr. Olympia is on TV, or should I say when Mr. Olympia happens in September, every single person who's in the bodybuilding community on earth watched the show, right? But I can guarantee you my pro card right now, people like Phil Heath, Sean Roden, guys that have won Mr. Olympia before, they don't know when the other federations' championships are. So that should tell you something. Right?
Makes sense.
But those guys in the other federations, they know exactly when Mr. Olympia happens. So whether they'll admit it or not, Mr. Olympia is the highest. It's the highest title anyone could ever achieve.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And when it comes to local events, what's the most prestigious one? Like, if I can say, okay, I've conquered this one in South Africa, maybe it's time to look at pro. Which ones would you say?
It's my federation, bro, NPC, for Pro League. So if you had to win an overall, so basically what happens in a competition, there's all these divisions, call them 7 divisions. Right? Out of the 7 divisions, they then pick a winner out of all the divisions. And in that, out of those 7 winners, they then do another lot. So they form a lineup. And then they pick an overall winner in that respective lineup. So whoever wins that overall title, that's the guy that's arrived.
Is that your end goal, Mr. Olympia?
Absolutely. I don't want to just participate in Mr. Olympia. I want to win the whole thing.
Okay, and what? Then what? Does Mr. Olympia also have weight divisions? Like
yes. So there's only 2 there though.
Okay.
So because obviously, as I said, we're working with an American matrix system. They have 212, under 212, and then they have, they call it the 212 division. So which means the weight limit there is 212, which is 212 pounds. I think if you divide that by 2.2, it's 100. Or just under 100. And then obviously anything higher than that, we call it open class. So in Mr. Olympia, there's only 2 divisions in bodybuilding. If anything, there's only 2 divisions in bodybuilding in the pro league. So in the pro divisions, we don't have 7 divisions. There's only 2.
Okay.
There's only 2.
Okay, makes sense. So I'm new to this and I want to get started. Obviously, I need to hit the gym. I need to start eating and all of that before I can think of that. But what's the first step? Do I need to be registered to an organization? Like say I'm advising or you're advising a kid coming up in the bodybuilding industry and they look up to you and they want to know, where do I start? Where do you
start in terms of competing?
In terms of maybe before I get to compete, obviously the body aspect is there. Would you say getting a coach?
That's absolutely important, bro. And it's sad that I need to put this disclaimer, but the reality is, once you've started traveling around the world, you also realize how sometimes people in your own country get taken for advantage. So what I'm going to say is get a good coach. Because everyone right now on social media is trying to be a coach, right? They enter one show and all of a sudden they think they're coaches, or they Google something and next thing they call themselves a coach. The first step is to get a good coach, right? Emphasis on good, because not everyone in the industry is good, right? Get a good coach. Obviously, get your nutrition going, get your training right. So have have a physique you obviously going to deem worthy of being on stage. And again, respectfully speaking, yes, we want as many people to get into the sports and do this, right? But at the same time, you know, work so hard towards the physique you're trying to look like before getting on stage. You know, if you're not there yet, it's okay to take time, bro. You know, even in my sport, as in the level that I'm in, I take time between shows. I don't just jump from show to show because I also, at this level, still have stuff that I need to work on, you know? So I can understand the excitement of wanting to get on stage, but take time. If you see, you know, that the best thing would happen is the requirements, right? So if you feel like you don't have the requirements, so maybe the requirements would be, you know, dense muscle, good conditioning, you know, proportional, symmetrical. You know, if you feel like you're missing a few pointers in that, don't do it. You know, give yourself some time. That's what a lot of people don't do. They don't give themselves some time. And then what happens is, because we're in a subjective sport, people go on the stage, and then when they hear the commentary and the backlash that comes with, they're sometimes not as strong enough to stomach that. And then people, you know, the egos are blown, whatever the case may be. You know, and I'm not saying that, obviously, you don't want to be criticized. I'm at this level, and I still get criticized. I've heard everything about my physique you possibly can hear. Small calves, small back, needs to be bigger, needs to get thicker. I've heard everything. I'm not conditioned enough. And I still hear it till today. You know, but at the same time, it's a matter of, you know, understanding that this is where I am and this is where I want to get to. And every single time you get on stage, you get better and you get better and you get better. You know?
And how many pro bodybuilders do we have in South Africa?
In South Africa right now, I stand corrected, but I think there's 15, which is sad. But at the same time, I'm glad that now South Africa has a platform where we can turn a few more people into pros every year. So obviously the show that gets hosted in South Africa is an international show, so which means people from abroad can come and compete. But the idea is to try and cultivate as many pros from South Africa, right? So last year, I think we had a new entry of about 6 pros, which was possibly the biggest influx of pros to happen in 1 year in South Africa, right? Because in 2018, there was literally just 2 of us that turned pro. And prior to that, I think there was like a 3 or 4 year gap that no one had turned pro. You know, and I mean, if you look at numbers, we're in a country where there's 60 million people, for 17 people to be pro, the numbers don't add up. In a community where there's so many people that are doing the sport, you know. But it's good that now there's a platform for more people to turn pros. So yeah, I stand corrected, but I think the tally at the moment stands on 17, and 17 being female and male, right? So you do get obviously the other female divisions, figure, bikini and bodybuilding and women's physique and whatever, you know.
I hate to take it racial and all, but how many black bodybuilders can we say we have?
So I was the first one in 2018.
Pro?
Yeah, to turn pro. The second one was, same year actually, was Muzi Maluleka.
Okay.
No, I'm lying. He did it the next year in March. So he turned pro 2019, I think in March. So the reality is there's 2 of us.
So you were the first black bodybuilder
in the history of bodybuilding in South Africa. Yeah.
Props, brother. Props.
Yeah. So there's 2 of us, but the goal is to get, you know, more people of color into the sports. You know what I mean? Not into the sport, but let me just say into the pro ranks.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of good athlete, bro. I'm such a fan of so many of my brothers in the sport, bro. They have such phenomenal physiques.
Who are not pros?
Who are not pros, bro.
But why do you think people choose not to go pro, or is it a...
it's not about them choosing not to go pro, bro. It's a lot of things, bro. Number one, it can be resources, because I got my pro card in Philippines, so which means I had to travel to Philippines. That's flights, that's accommodation, food, whatever the case may be. So you're looking at an expense that was no less than 60,000-70,000 rand. So for some people, that's not money they can, you know, have access to. And even if they don't have it in their personal capacity, some people don't have the sponsorship backing.
True.
You know what I mean? So I wouldn't say it's a choice that they don't want to turn pro as much as sometimes the resources. But as I said, I'm glad now there's more opportunities for people to do it locally. Because now there's a show that happens locally where people can actually do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me something. What I hear you saying pro card and pro card and pro card, but what does it mean to have a pro card?
So what it means, number one, obviously, is that, and so funny you asked that. I actually had a conversation with someone, and we were trying to break down what it means to be an IFBB professional athlete. Okay. It means, first and foremost, that I belong in an organization called the IFBB.
Okay.
Because now we look at the title, because when I get introduced, I'm Sibusiso Kotelo, IFBB professional athlete.
Oh, okay.
So we look at the first one, IFBB, so which means I belong in an organization. I operate in that organization. I compete in that organization. I cultivate more athletes to come into that organization.
Oh, okay.
Then you look at the word professional. So it means I'm a professional in my sport.
Oh,
So the same way a soccer player would say, I have South African colours, I play for South Africa, I'm a professional athlete. He's a professional soccer player, right? So you look at the professional aspect, which means, my conduct is professional. The way I carry myself has to be professional. As an athlete, I'm revered as a professional because now obviously when I get into a show, I don't register under amateur. I'm now a professional. I compete against other professional athletes, right? Yeah. And then obviously the athletic part of the word as well, which means I'm an athlete first that decided to do bodybuilding. And that's what a lot of people confuse, and that's why I enjoy the kind of training that I do. It's because I pride myself in the fact that I'm an athlete first that decided to do bodybuilding, So in essence, that's what it means. It means that, I'm a professional in what I do. And if anything, it's actually a title, bro. It's a genuine title in the sense that the same way if my future partner was Dr. So-and-so, my title is IFBB Pro SIbusiso.
Oh, that's dope.
So that's exactly
dope. You should introduce yourself like that.
No, I'm not that guy. If anything, I'm SIbusiso first, then then everything else, 100%.
So tell me something. You speak a lot about federations and all of that. Do you think in South Africa we have enough federations to make things work?
We do, bro. We do have enough federations to make things right. Unfortunately, though, we have people that are trying to monopolize federations, or should I say monopolize athletes. When you travel, bro, and the thing is, it's sad because, each time I travel to a different country and I experience the fitness world and community there, I genuinely wish I could bring back the information into South Africa. Or rather take South Africa to see what's going on there. In the sense that, you travel to America, every federation has its rules in terms of how you're going to climb the ranks if you're trying to attain a pro card in their federation. But now in South Africa, you get people that are trying to monopolize athletes in such a way that at amateur level, they're trying to tell them, you can't compete there, go compete there. If you do this, we'll ban you from this. That's not good sportsmanship. So we do have enough federations, but unfortunately, they're run by people that are trying to just put money in their pockets. So, because think about it, each time you do a show, you pay about $200. So if a show has about 300 athletes paying $200 per entry, you know what I mean? Now, it's going to affect my business if USAJ now have another federation and my athletes are jumping ship. So the only way I can control that is I put beacons or loopholes in the system that probably doesn't even exist. But if you create it and talk about it hard enough, I can scare my athletes enough to be like, if you do AJ's federation, whatever, or competition, I'm going to make sure that you ban from here. You'll never achieve this. You never do that. So then, people then look at your federation like, I really want to do it, but if I do it, smooth, I can't. And then, because now I'm thinking my pocket. So that has hindered the growth of bodybuilding on an amateur level a lot. The only time I advocate for those laws to actually happen and take place is when someone is adamant about, I'm in this federation and this is what I want to achieve in this federation. Then by all means, have policies. For example, one of the rules they had, I think back in the day, I'm not sure if it's still implemented, they say that you have to compete in that federation for a full year, only in that federation, before you can do a show that can get you a pro card. I agree with that. For me, it shows a certain level of loyalty, it shows a certain level of commitment, and it shows a big level of direction, right? I agree to that. But for someone who does competing as recreational, who getting a pro card is not really a thing, or if it is a thing, they just genuinely maybe just trying to see which federation they feel comfortable in.
Yeah.
Because federation is also a comfortability thing, you know what I mean? And again, you know, I'm friends with a few boxers. So they'll even tell you that, you know, I'd rather fight in this federation because, I don't know, promoters treat me better, I get more publicity, whatever the case may be, and that's okay. So we do have enough, but at the same time, the politics sometimes that happen in South Africa, bro, it's setting us back like you'll not believe.
Yeah. That sucks, man.
Yeah.
That sucks. And another thing I wanted to touch on is sponsorships.
Yeah.
So how do I go about finding a sponsorship? Not only a sponsorship, the right sponsorship, number one. What's in it for them? What's in it for me?
Yeah.
You know.
So you're asking the right questions, right? The right way to find a sponsorship is actually asking yourself the question is, what value could I add to a company, right? And as a rational businessman, that should be your first basis of finding which field you could go for. Okay. Now, what happens in our industry, especially, and I'm going to pick on the supplements part of sponsorship because that's largely the biggest one in most. I want to say in most countries, but I'd say mostly in South Africa, right?
Okay.
Because some countries having a supplement sponsor it's inconsequential. You know, some people would rather have, I don't know, a clothing sponsor, or maybe the bigger one actually would be getting a food sponsor, right? Because obviously as bodybuilders we eat a lot. So in some countries I've seen that getting a supplement sponsor is like, you know.
I actually didn't think about it that way. I always thought a sponsor would be supplements.
Yeah,
And
so
that,
so it could be a lot of things, bro. I mean, I know guys that, you know, once you've cultivated your brand in a good way, you can even go as far as getting a car sponsor, bro. Like it can, because you must understand, as a bodybuilder, because this is your business, you are the brand. So if you can cultivate your brand in a good way, you can align yourself with various companies that in some instances might, you know, you might not even think they even had a relationship. Like for example, I know a guy who had a watch sponsor because that watch was, those timepieces, they were designed for bodybuilders.
Really?
Yeah. So the theme of those timepieces were designed for a niche fitness market. Right, so he was the face of that. So you asked the right questions, but so the first question is what can I add value to the company? Once you answer that question, it's easy to then, for the company to turn around and be like, we think, you know, this is how much you can add value to the company, and this is what we think we can give you in return. If you turn the question around and you think, how much can the company give me? You've already haven't done enough research. You know what I mean? And it also has to boil down with the sense of entitlement. Now, there's a fine line between entitlement and how much I'm worth. Because that fine line is bridged between, you know, a sense of ignorance or arrogance, maybe. Because how much I'm worth is me understanding my positioning as a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
Right? For example, you know, I was rated, or statistically right now, rated the best bodybuilder in the country. So I could say that's how much I'm worth.
Yeah.
But I'm not entitled to whatever I think I'm entitled to because of that.
Yeah.
It's just there has a meaning of, because of the position I'm in, I now know how much I'm worth, and that's my basis of, I'm not trying to, how can I say it, get anything less than what I'm worth. And then it's easy to pass off stuff where you're like, listen, this is not for me, and you're okay with it.
Basically, it needs to be beneficial for both.
Absolutely. So if you're trying to get a sponsor, the one thing I also tell people if you're good enough, you shouldn't have to look for sponsors.
They'll find you.
Yeah. Because when I made cover for Muscle Evolution 4 years ago, the first supplement company that sponsored me, the CEO himself found me.
To divert just a little bit, that cover, man, that is crazy. Was that your first?
Yeah, it was my first cover. At the time I was the youngest guy to make the cover.
Yeah.
It was 2015. Early 2015.
Yeah. That's crazy, man, because growing up you see your Jay Cutlers and all of these guys, you know it's very rare to see like someone you can actually relate to. But how was that for you, man, seeing yourself on that magazine cover?
It was mad, bro. If anything, the one thing I've kept from the cover was the nickname the cover gave me, because
the Kid Prodigy.
The Kid Prodigy, 100%. You know, because I resonate so much with the article that was written about me, in the sense that the irony about the article is that the article was written as a look at this kid and look at what he could do, and my life in the past 5 years was literally went exactly into that direction. You know what I mean? Like they called it as a dream that I'm going to turn pro, and it happened. You know what I mean? So they called it as a dream that I'm going to compete on international stage. That happened. So it's been mind-blowing.
And is there such a thing as a bad supplement and a good supplement?
Absolutely.
What's a bad supplement?
Absolutely. Look, bad supplements. So obviously a lot of people know me as Sibusiso and IFBB Pro, but not a lot of people know that I'm also a coach. So I'm a coach, I'm a personal trainer, and I also give advice on supplementation and food, you know what I mean? So when you do the research that, we do at SCS, because I work with a team of very great dynamic coaches best in the country, and the head coach there is Jack Lotto, who's my coach. Nerd, bro, proper nerd, always researching stuff, always learning, always reading clinical studies, peer reviews, whatever the case may be. It's when you understand the ingredients and the profile is what you put in the supplements, that's the knowledge people don't have, that's why they cannot determine if a supplement is good or not. Alright? Okay. I'll give you an example.
Yeah, please.
Give you an example. Quick example we spoke about 2 weeks ago. There's a supplement company that has put something called taurine in their pre-workout.
Oh yeah, same thing you find in energy drinks. Yeah.
Okay, but that's another story for another day.
Okay.
But this one, the supplement company puts taurine in the pre-workout. So Jack and I are sitting at work, we're like, why would they put taurine in a pre-workout? Because taurine is actually a antagonist. It's a dopamine antagonist inhibitor, which basically, to cut a long story short, it actually slows down your absorption of dopamine in your system. Dopamine being responsible for you making me feel good. So now I'm thinking, if I'm taking a pre-workout and I'm supposed to feel good and energetic that I'm about to train, why would I take something that's gonna hinder my absorption of that?
Yeah, but you wouldn't know that if you didn't know
So if you didn't know what taurine was, just as a supplement and what it actually does, then so people are buying the product because it was advertised well, because obviously supplements is all about advertising, marketing. It was advertised well, and also because they put some other things in it that give you a kick for you to think, okay, then it might be good.
Working.
You know what I mean? So they maybe might increase the caffeine content in there, and you're like, oh man, I got a pump and I got a kick out of it. But in retrospect, there's certain things in the product itself you look at, you're like, I wouldn't do this. You know what I mean? So there is a thing. There's genuinely a thing. My former sponsors are in America. They had good products. But when I say good products, I'm not sponsored by them anymore, but I still take their products. Because of the mere virtue of they had really, really good products. Because you read their profile, you're like, no man, this is legit. You know what I mean? So, there are bad products in the market, so I'll drop names, but they know themselves. They call themselves nutrition wellness coaches on Instagram. Those people. So those products, it's hogwash. Like I wouldn't touch it with my toe. So there are bad products in the market.
And good products. What should I look for in a product when I'm trying to become a bodybuilder? Yes, I know there's different types of proteins, whey proteins. There's mono And
No, 100%.
yeah.
Look, when
So
you get
what's
a good product, bro, it's difficult to say, right? A good product has to do with what it needs to do. Do you get what I mean?
Okay.
For example, if I need to take a pre-workout, what is a pre-workout supposed to do? It's not necessarily about putting enough caffeine in it to give me a kick. It's supposed to be a vasodilator. It's supposed to give me antioxidants, this and that. You know what I mean? There's certain requirements that a pre-workout is supposed to meet for me to justify why I'm buying it and for me to understand that it's a good product. Okay? Another thing, you spoke about protein. If someone is going to put soy protein or soy milk, people don't know this, but a lot of soy can actually increase your estrogen levels. As a guy, you don't want to increase your estrogen levels. We're all about increasing our testosterone levels. Then that's not a good protein. You know what I mean? So for what the protein is supposed to do and what they put inside, you need to look at what, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, if I need to do a casein protein, that's the slow release. How much of it is hydrolyzed versus, you look at percentages. That will determine what a good product is. And then some things, I take something called omega-3s. Omega-3s, then you look at stuff like DHA and EPA, right? So this is the profile at the back. When you look at those numbers, do they hit a high number enough for us to determine it as a good product? Because what happens is people, they have a baseline of what's the bare minimum to put in something, and obviously that's something they put there because as a businessman, you want to put as little as possible to meet the requirements.
True.
So that doesn't make it a good product. So if someone puts the actual efficacious doses that a human body needs to absorb in order for the body to actually get the nutrients out of it to determine it as a good product.
I see.
You know what I mean?
Okay, so it's basically what your body needs, and are you getting?
It's what the clinical studies have said it needs. So, for example, if I'm doing a creatine, let's say creatine is supposed to have 5 grams of creatine, and the reading at the back, maybe that creatine has 3 grams. The dosaging of creatine has to be a specific number. If I'm hitting a number lower than that, it's
no use.
100%.
Okay. Earlier on, you touched on a topic. You are a personal trainer as well, and you train a couple of celebrities. We know. I've been seeing on your Instagram. You had your Shauna Ferguson.
Yeah, Shauna Ferguson, DJ Fresh,
Ricky,
DJ Cosmo.
I saw you even working with Flomla Dandala.
He's working on a role. He's shooting on the 25th of March. He starts shooting. I work with him. I've worked with a few guys before as well. I've worked with DJ Milkshake, Luma Shabalala. I've worked with Zulu Mkatini. I've worked with a few guys.
So tell me something. Let's put Flomla on the side, because that's aimed at a role. So 100%. I think it would be easier to try and get someone to train for a role than to try and get them to where they don't even know where they want to get to.
It's actually harder training someone for a role.
Really?
Yeah. Because obviously the role wants someone to look a specific way. You can either unshoot it or overshoot it. So it can go to a point. Actually my first celeb client, if I want to call him that, was a guy called Umdukumede. He plays Undandan Nesibaya.
Okay.
So he needed to, he was his role is a taxi guy, but he needed to fill out his frame. So we overshot his frame in such a way that it got so big that the guys were like, okay, cool, like, it's okay now. So you can't overshoot it, right? They were like, no, you know what? Okay. It's okay now, you've done it, because they didn't want to change wardrobes for him, so they had a specific look that they needed him to. So they needed him to have that buff, I'm a taxi driver kind of thing. If I need to fight, I can be able to do it. So him and I overshot it. So eventually to reel it down.
Okay. And the other guys tell me, like, say I'm a celebrity. 100%. I come to you. What's the first thing you try and understand, and where do we start?
Yeah.
Because I'm not training for a role,
100%.
But I've seen you on Instagram. Yeah. I know that you're capable of turning me into a beast.
Sure.
Where do we start?
So the one thing that I always do, actually it's not just for celebrities, anyone that I train, I actually literally give you homework. So I tell you to go home, Google a picture of someone you'd like to look like. Right? So one of the reasons, so 2 reasons. Number one is because obviously it gives us a goal to work towards, and two, it gives me information to be able to manage expectations. Because that's what a lot of guys don't do. They don't manage clients' expectations. Because if a guy is, I don't know, is 30% body fat and he's trying to look like a guy, I can see that this guy is like no less than 7% body fat, and they tell me, no, they want to look like this, which is possible. The human body can do virtually anything it wants to do.
Yeah.
However, if they turn around and be like, dude, I'm 30% body fat, so I want to be 7% body fat in 3 months, I'd be like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for me, it's managing expectations, being like, listen, we can get to this goal, but maybe it's going to take us 6 months, 7 months, 8 months.
Yeah.
So I do that. So that's where I start with all my clients, you know, just give yourself a visual image of what you want to look like. Another reason why I do that is because I then ask you to make that picture for at least a month, your screensaver. Reason being, there's a psychological thing about you each time you take your phone. How much time do you spend on our phones? Quite a bit, right? Statistically, actually, they say that by the time you live and die, you will have spent an equivalent of 4 years looking at your phone. Okay, so imagine the subliminal confirmation of each time you pick up your phone, like this is the way I like to do it. So I like to do that as a first thing, you know, first month. The reason being, it gives you're a bit more stricter. So if the boys are like, bro, screw your diets, let's go have a burger.
Yeah.
What's the first thing you take when you're about to leave your house? Is your phone. So you're gonna look at this picture and be like,
can I really afford to?
So I'm being serious. I've had clients literally saying, you know, they're about to do something silly, but they looked at the picture as a screensaver, they're like, actually, guys, calm me out.
But that's the thing, bro. Fine, I get the screensaver and it's a mental thing.
Yeah.
But you as a coach, you gotta ask yourself, man, like I don't want to train someone day in and day out, and once they leave the gym, I don't have any control over what they eat.
100%.
And yet they want to have this kind of physique. How do you manage your expectations as well to say that, hey, this guy could be eating nasty?
I get exactly what you're asking. This is how I'm going to answer that. So I've, fortunately enough, created such a brand for myself that I'm in a position where I can actually fire clients.
Oh, yeah?
So I do that.
That's crazy.
Absolutely. We need to work together.
Yeah.
So because at the end of the day, I need to protect my brand. So for example, DJ Fresh is a good example because he's don't tell him this, but he's old enough to be my father. But he just feel like his little brother, right?
Yeah.
And when we're rolling with him, like he'll be like, dude, I'm playing somewhere here, I got you VIP tickets, pull through. So I chill with him, and the commentary that you hear about people saying, bro, like, you know, I saw you lost two months ago, and geez, bro, you're looking good.
Yeah.
For me, for him to be able to turn around and be like, yeah, it's because of him. That's my brand. Yeah. Now imagine I'm working with this guy, very famous guy, and people have seen that I'm working with this guy, and his body's not doing anything, or worse, it's actually regressing. Now imagine what that would do to my brand.
Yeah, true.
So to protect my brand, I put that on the line. Where I'm like, listen, it's either you give me 200% or nothing at all. Anything below that, I don't work with. Okay, and I then, you know, as I said, I've been fortunate enough that I'm in a situation where I do this as a passion project, and yes, I want to put food on the table, but my goal for someone and meeting their goal supersedes me trying to take money from them.
Yeah.
So because of that, it's easy for me to be like, listen, I'd rather take, I don't know, however months the invoice is, I'd rather take that knock than what that keeping them would do to my brand in the long run. So that's genuinely how I do it, bro.
Yeah.
I've had those uncomfortable conversations. Where I sit someone down and I'm like, listen, bro, like, I enjoy training with you, I think you're a nice person, you're a great person, but I don't think you're giving me 100%. So it's either you shape up, or honestly speaking, next month is your last month and it's all good.
Yeah. Because a lot of people actually need that. They need that person who will say, hey.
And I genuinely learned that from my own coach, bro.
Yeah.
Like I actually coach the way I want to be coached. And I'm privileged enough that I have a coach like that. Who I know for a fact, bro, if I prep for a show and I could be 2 hours away from getting the plane, going to that show, and if he looked at me and he's like, nah, it's not gonna happen, he would genuinely give me the money back for what I've paid for that flight and be like, stay at home. I know that I could put that on record.
Yeah.
And because I have the relationship like that I have with him, I don't expect any less from my clients as well. You know what I mean?
Is this Jack the Sheriff?
Jack, yeah.
Jack, your relationship with Jack is crazy, man. I swear, I look at you guys and I'm like, I'm sure it's just it's crazy in the gym with these two in there, man. How long have you known Jack for?
So I shook Jack's hand on the 30th of September 2015. So I've known him since 2015.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did you find him? Did he find you?
So he found me
okay.
actually on Facebook. He had seen me at the Rossi Classic, I think, in 2015. And then he asked one of his athletes to literally like track me down, which they did. And then he sent me well, Instagram wasn't big back then. He sent me a WhatsApp message, not WhatsApp, sorry, a Facebook.
Yeah.
And he's like, dude, like, I'd like to train you like for free. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But then I'm the kind of athletes that I need my coach next to me. So I was like, bro, I don't think this thing is gonna work. Because I'm not an online kind of person. I need my coach in my ear, screaming in my ear, you know. So, and then it so happened that at the time I just recently, as I said, you know, kicked out of varsity. I was working at Acadjo. So he's like, dude, what are you doing with your life? I'm like, nah, but I'm just doing some retailing. He's like, would you like to be a coach? I'm like, okay. So I literally got a full tank of petrol. Drove to Johannesburg at 132 rand in my bank account, and that's how I started.
That's dope.
Yeah.
Has Jack been a pro bodybuilder before?
Yes, he's a WBFF pro.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
He was, well, still is, because he still has a pro card. He's a muscle model.
And tell me, would you trust someone who's not a pro to train you, or who's never been a pro, or someone half your size?
Absolutely.
Would you?
Absolutely. I can understand why it asked me that, and the reason why I say absolutely is because it's like asking a boxer, would you trust someone who's never been in a ring to teach you how to catch and throw punches they've never caught it, right? And the reason I say absolutely is because I didn't need Jack to be an IFBB Pro for me to confirm the fact that he's good at what he does. Right? The testimony in seeing him work with other athletes was evidencing for me enough to understand that he's good at what he does. The fact that he's still a coach that keeps learning is also evidence enough for me to understand that he's good. And I'll tell you why. I've never had a prep that's been the same. I cannot, in such a way that people are like, why are you still getting coached by Jack? Can't you do this by yourself? My question is no. Reason being, I've never had a prep that's been the same, because each prep differs, because every single year, this guy will sit down and he's like, okay, cool. What's the plan of action for this prep? Because Sibusiso physique in 2019 is not going to be Sibusiso physique in 2020. So he needs to understand this is the physique he's working with now. So, you know, I genuinely would, he didn't have to be an IFBB Pro for me to justify why I needed him, you know, to be my coach.
Bro, what is a fuck slap?
He's called me that. He's called me
I saw you talking about it the other day.
He's called me a walking fuck slap on muscle.
What's that all about?
I think it's just a way of saying I'm a big guy. It's just a way of saying I'm a big guy. So especially when I'm on prep and I look, you know, less fat. He just says like I'm walking fuck slap of muscle.
That's dope, man. And tell me something. I've been trying out this thing, this plant-based diet thing. I'm on 6 months now.
Okay, how's it going?
It's, to be honest with you, I feel great.
Okay.
I feel awesome.
Yeah.
The endurance is there. Okay. I haven't lost that much weight, but yet I feel lighter for some odd reason.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, like
it's so that has been a very controversial conversation to have, and without me getting into much detail, because actually I might be doing a kind of discussion with some very relevant people in the industry talking about it, right? To cut a long story short, bro, there's certain parts of that documentary that I really disagreed with, right? Especially when they tried to put
is this Game Changers?
The Game Changers, right?
Okay.
Especially when they tried to put the
World's Strongest Man.
No. When they try to put that you get the same protein in a sandwich or something like that.
Oh, yes. The 3 different guys.
100%, right. I actually met someone who plant-based, and their sole reason for doing it is that, and again, this is me putting it bluntly, is that they were not regular when they went to the bathroom, when they ate meat.
Oh, okay.
And then when they started plant-based, they literally go to the bathroom each and every day, which is actually a healthy thing to do, right? So when they said that to me, I was like, listen, by all means, then do carry on with plant-based. My squam with people that advocate plant-based, even on even advocated on a performance-based, that's my squam. It's when you telling me that you can look like me going plant-based.
So you can't? You don't think you can?
Try it. I dare you.
What would hinder me?
Bro, you're not going to get the same nutrition, my guy. You know what I mean? It's not the same nutritional, calorific, dense food that you're gonna, get from I don't know, eating so much of plant-based food versus a chicken and a rice. Ronnie Coleman didn't look like that from a plant-based diet, bro. Yeah. And people that are advocating plant-based diets, especially in that documentary, they're now doing it for health reasons. If you had to put them back in the day when they were still, put it bluntly, fucking shit up in the industry, ask them if they'd go plant-based, not a chance, bro. Being honest, Schwarzenegger would have done bodybuilding the way, at his level that he did doing plant-based.
He's only doing it now. But I don't think he would have been that big at all.
So for me, if your reasonings are you're against animal cruelty, do it. You are about conserving nature, do it. As I said, I just found out a new one now where this chick is like, I'm doing it because it makes me go regular to the bathroom.
Oh, yeah.
Do it. But don't tell me you're doing plant-based because you're trying to get stronger, you're trying to outperform Smooth, be as big as Smooth, or I don't know, like, for me, I'm like, no.
They don't work.
No. Yeah.
All right. One more thing, Spoo. So I saw a video the other day where you got to train with Sean Roden.
Yeah.
How's that, man?
The thing is, and again, I think because I'm in the space that I was in, I'm not as mind blown as people when people report it back to me.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not downplaying the fact of how amazing it is as athletes or the experience. I'm not downplaying the experience. Don't get me wrong. But the reason I say that is because when you actually interact with him as a person, he genuinely takes that and puts it aside. He doesn't introduce, like, the same way you said I'm introduce myself as I'm IFBB Pro SIbusiso.
Yeah.
He's not, I'm Mr. Olympia 2019 Sean Roden. 2018 Sean Roden. He's not that guy. And because of how we met and how much of a sense of humor he has and how much he took me in as a mentee, when I actually trained with him when I was in America, for me it felt like I was seeing him again.
Yeah.
It felt like I'm seeing him again, and the only difference between the last time I saw him and seeing him again was the fact that the last time I saw him was giving me my pro card, because I had met him the year before. So I met him 2017 when he was touring in South Africa.
Oh, okay.
And so you know how Instagram has that explore button?
Yeah.
And that explore button is based on obviously stuff you normally look at, and sometimes the algorithm has to do with your location. So because he was in South Africa, it picked up fitness entities in bodybuilding that are in South Africa. So apparently he was sitting at one of the, I think it was in Cape Town, he was about to come to Joburg, and he clicks on this button and he asks Brad, one of the guys that brought him in, he's like, dude, who's this pro? And he actually looked at a picture of me. So Brad was like, don't stress, I'm going to introduce you when we get to Joburg. So Brad picks up the phone, he's like, hey, listen, I want to introduce you to someone, do you want to come to dinner? So I'm like, that's weird, but okay. I get to the dinner and lo and behold, Sean Roden is there, bro.
So you didn't know?
I didn't know. So anyway, I get there and he's like, dude, I genuinely thought you were a pro. Like, he literally apparently, not even apparently, because this is what he told me. He's like, dude, I looked at your picture and the only criticism I had about your whole physique was the fact that your posing trunk was sitting too low. Literally.
What? That's from Mr. Olympia.
He literally said the only criticism I had about the picture I saw was that you need to get a posing trunk that's slightly higher. Right? So I'm like, well, dude, I'm flattered you think I'm a pro. So the whole night, me and him kept talking.
Yeah.
We kept in touch for a full year. And with the promise that in 2018, I'm going to come and do a show. That's when I won my pro card. So when I saw him in 2019 in July and we were training, for me it felt like I'm just seeing him again.
Yeah.
But we'd been Skyping, we'd Skype together. You know, if I have a business decision I need to make or the sponsorship, whatever, he's the first guy I'll come like, yo, dude, I don't want to mess up. So what happens when you get to this level of, you know, business? It's like, okay, cool, do this, do that. So when we were training, bro, I mean, it genuinely felt like I was just seeing him again. The only difference is we were training at the gym. And then obviously I got to meet Charles Glass, which was amazing. The next day they took me to meet Mike Rashid, which was also amazing. So yeah, bro, he's such a nice guy, bro. Like, I normally say I'm the funniest guy I know. Yeah. He probably is a good second. He's such a funny guy. Bro. Like, he has a sense of humor. Like, he does. And I saw how goofy he is and I resonated with it because I'm also that goofy. Like, if I'm training with headphones at the gym, I really don't kills at the gym. I'll sing aloud to my headphones. Yeah. So he's that guy. And even if it's like a chick flick kind of song, you'll see him bobbing his head, singing loud, you know, he's that guy, you know. So for me, I was like, you know, I can handle that, you know. So he's such a nice guy, bro.
Speaking of funny instances, Kizumba, bro. What's up with that? Yeah. Bro, if I passed the studio and I saw a big guy like you dancing, I'd ask myself,
what the hell is going on?
Like, what's up with that?
So, I think I started this 3 years ago. Yeah. Every year I pick up a language, an instrument, or a dance. Oh. So it so happened that last year it was the year to pick up a dance. So the only one I've actually actively avoided to pick up is a language, which is sad because the first language I want to pick up is actually my dad's language because I'm actually Tswana by blood. Oh, okay. Yeah, so I'm actually Zulu by upbringing because I grew up in KZN, but by blood I'm Tswana. So it's actually the first language I genuinely do want to learn. So yeah, I haven't got into it. In fact, I did instruments back to back just to avoid the language. Yeah. And then last year I just decided I don't want to pick up an instrument. So I was like, then we do Kizumba. So I've been doing Kizumba since last year.
Don't worry, bro. I'll put you on to that Tswana.
Oh, look, Fresh is supposed to be teaching me Tswana. That's
he's got that deep Tswana. He's got that Botswana.
So my dad is actually from Botswana. So
dope. When you I saw your performance and your routine when you were competing, and I noticed that you used the South African track as a backing. Vulega Masa, I think, with Amanda Black.
Black. Sorry, Amanda Black.
Vulega Amazulu. Yes. How important was that for you, or was it just the track that you resonated with at the time?
Well, look, I resonated with the track. Yeah. But I'm proudly South African, bro. I'm proudly South African in the sense that each time I leave the country, the amount of support that I get from South Africa each time I leave the country and represent South Africa is absolutely overwhelming. Like, it's the most overwhelming experience I can't even fathom how overwhelming it is, bro. Like, the first time I left the country to compete overseas was when I did the Shonrodin Classic. 2016 I did Spain, but that was another federation, right? I kid you not, at the time I had probably 20,000 followers. I had over 2,500 inboxes saying good luck.
That's dope.
Literally, bro. That's more than engagement that happens on social media, because social media they normally say you get 2 or 3% engagement. I had a 10% engagement. Literally, I posted the fact that I'm leaving. I had 2,500 people to say thank you for saying good luck, bro.
That's awesome.
So because of that, bro, I think it'd be irresponsible for me to go overseas and lose my South Africanness. You know what I mean? It'd be irresponsible, it'd be irrational, and it'd be not true to myself. Because me, you know, I pride myself in the fact that I'm South African in such a way that if ever I had to move from South Africa, I'd still register my name, because obviously when you register for a show, you have to put your name in the country from. I'd still put South Africa, even if, I don't know, I had to stay anywhere else in the world and I'm doing bodybuilding, I'd still resonate in the fact that I'm representing South Africa, because I'm born and bred here, bro. This is home.
Man, that's dope, man. So, bro, let's I don't want to put you on the spot, man. But Bro, like I'm following you every day. I'm checking your Insta stories, everything, man.
Yeah.
You kill me. You're a funny guy because I read the responses to your messages sometimes, and I'm like, what a guy, man. But if you were to put a time frame now to end off this podcast, how long do you think would you say you're giving yourself to get to the Arnold Classic and, God willing, win it?
Arnold's Classic, not Olympia.
No, sorry, Mr. Olympia.
Mr. Olympia.
That's your final destination. So how long are you giving yourself to get there?
So I'm going to put myself under pressure and put myself on record, but I'm going to be in the Olympia stage next year.
Next year?
2021, yeah, 2021.
I'm for that.
Yeah, 2021.
I'm with you all the way, man.
Because the plan for this year is to start, we call it your campaign into Mr. Olympia, which basically means you're doing few shows to try and qualify, because you just need to win a pro show.
Yeah, okay.
So we're doing several pro shows towards the end of this year to try and qualify for next year. So I already had my eyes off this year.
Yeah.
And I did that on purpose because I know what my physique needs. It's time, and I know what my physique needs to do in terms of working on my bigger shoulders, a thicker back. I know my own weaknesses. Then people don't, people should not even get that mistaken. I've got a team. Bro, I got Jack. Let me not say a team because I've got Josh as well, who obviously will tell me like straight up, bro, they call a spade. Yeah. Right?
That's what you need.
So I've got a team that literally would like do, I remember before I went to South Korea, Jack looks at me and is like, dude, I think your arms are getting smaller. That's the kind of coach I have.
That's the last thing you want to hear.
You know what I mean? But he was, but he's like, dude, like, there's something weird about your arms. And we genuinely measured them, and he was right. I'd lost, I think, a centimeter on my arms because I'd been so focusing on my other body parts.
Yeah.
The other body parts grew, but I wasn't growing my arms. You know what I mean?
That's crazy.
So this year, the goal is to bulk as much as I can, obviously look at my weak spots, and then I'm going to do several shows towards the end of this year, straight after Mr. Olympia, because our calendar is September to September, not December to January. So ours is September to September because once Mr. Olympia is done, any show you do after Olympia is for next year's qualification.
I see.
So I'll be doing shows straight after Mr. Olympia this year. I'm doing several shows. So the goal, and which will be done, I'm going to win one of those pro shows and then qualify for 2021. So next year I'll be in the Olympia stage.
That's awesome, man. Bro, like, honestly, I've interviewed a few people, like I told you, of my past and all of that, and it just gets to me how so many times you, like, I didn't know you just a couple of weeks ago, and you gave your time and your efforts to be here, man. I really, really appreciate that. And, it's one thing that I've noticed that it's a common trait amongst guys who are leaders in their field. They're always keen to spread the word and all of that. And for that, I'm forever grateful, man.
Thank you so much.
I didn't pay this guy a cent to come here, and he's here and he gave it his all. I don't know what to say. I really, really appreciate it. Bro, for the camera, can you give us your Instagram handles, your social media handles? And also if we want to get a hold of you for training purposes.
100%. Yeah. Instagram, SIbusiso Kotelo. Facebook, SIbusiso Kotelo. I'm not a Twitter guy for some reason, but I have an account somewhere along the line. Okay. Also SIbusiso Kotelo. I have a website, www.sibusisokotelo.com, not .co.za. Obviously, I needed to do that for restrictions purposes. And if you want to get a hold of me, it's info@sibusisokotelo.com. Yeah.
Awesome. One important person I cannot go without mentioning is Mary. Mary, you're a legend. Thanks so much. I really, really owe you big time. Thanks for getting this big guy here. It was a blast for me, and one really, really for the books. Thanks a lot, guys. UNDERWRAPS, signing out.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.